What if I told you that the biggest failure of someone's academic career became the foundation for building a billion-dollar empire that would revolutionize an entire industry? Before we dive into this absolutely incredible story that will completely change how you think about failure, success, and the traditional path to achievement, make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because this channel brings you the most mind-blowing true stories of triumph against impossible odds. And trust me when I say you absolutely must watch this entire video because the twist at the end will leave you questioning everything you've ever been told about what it takes to succeed in life. Marcus Chen was supposed to be the pride of his immigrant family, the first-generation American son of parents who had sacrificed everything they had in Taiwan to give their children opportunities they could never have imagined in their homeland. His father working 16-hour days in a restaurant kitchen, while his mother cleaned office buildings at night, both of them saving every penny they could spare to ensure that Marcus would have the education and chances that had been denied to them by circumstances beyond their control. From the moment Marcus could hold a pencil, his parents made it clear that academic excellence wasn't just expected, but was the only acceptable path forward. Education being the great equalizer that would lift their family from the working-class struggles of their immigrant experience to the comfortable middle-class life that represented the American dream they had crossed an ocean to pursue, believing that good grades would lead to a prestigious university, which would lead to a high-paying professional career, which would finally justify all their sacrifices and sleepless nights. Marcus threw himself into his studies with the kind of intensity that only comes from knowing that your parents' hopes and dreams rest entirely on your shoulders, spending countless hours at the library, attending every study group, hiring tutors for subjects that challenged him, and maintaining a grade point average that consistently placed him in the top 5% of his class throughout elementary school, middle school, and the first 3 years of high school. His bedroom walls covered with academic achievement certificates and honor roll recognitions that his parents displayed with the pride usually reserved for Olympic medals. The pressure was enormous but seemed manageable until his senior year of high school, when Marcus decided to take the most challenging course load possible to impress college admissions officers, enrolling in advanced placement calculus, AP physics, AP chemistry, AP English literature, and AP history simultaneously, a schedule that would have been daunting for even the most gifted students, but which Marcus approached with the confidence born from years of academic success and the unwavering belief that hard work could overcome any obstacle. Everything seemed to be going according to plan until the spring of his senior year when Marcus faced the most important exam of his academic career, the Advanced Placement Calculus test that would not only determine whether he received college credit for the course, but would also serve as a crucial component of his application to Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the prestigious engineering school that had been his dream destination since middle school when he first learned about their groundbreaking research in computer science and artificial intelligence. Marcus had prepared for this exam like an Olympic athlete trains for competition, spending 6 months working through every practice problem he could find, attending weekend study sessions led by his teacher, and even hiring a private tutor who specialized in helping high-achieving students maximize their AP scores, his confidence growing with each practice test that showed steady improvement in both speed and accuracy, leading him to believe that the perfect score of 5 was not just possible, but practically guaranteed. The day of the exam arrived on a Tuesday morning, Marcus arriving at school 2 hours early to review his notes one final time and calm his nerves through meditation techniques he had learned from online videos, feeling as prepared as any student could reasonably expect to be for a test that would help determine the trajectory of his entire future. His parents having wished him luck that morning with expressions that mixed pride, hope, and barely concealed anxiety about the outcome that would either validate or undermine years of focused effort and sacrifice. The first section of the exam went smoothly, Marcus working through the multiple choice questions with the methodical precision that had served him well throughout his academic career, his confidence building as he recognized problems that were similar to ones he had practiced countless times, his pencil moving steadily across the answer sheet as he marked responses that felt correct and logical, the familiar rhythm of test-taking allowing him to settle into the focused mental state that had always been his greatest academic strength. But something went catastrophically wrong during the free response section, where students were required to work through complex calculus problems and show their reasoning in detailed written explanations.
Marcus finding himself staring at questions that seemed to be written in a foreign language, despite covering material he had studied extensively, his mind going blank in ways that had never happened before, panic setting in as precious minutes ticked away while he struggled to make sense of problems that should have been routine applications of concepts he had mastered months earlier. The harder he tried to force his brain to work, the more confused and desperate he became, his usual problem-solving strategies abandoning him completely as he wrote and erased answers that he knew were wrong, his handwriting becoming increasingly frantic and illegible as time pressure mounted and the realization dawned that he was failing the most important test of his life in spectacular fashion, all his preparation and confidence crumbling like a house of cards in a hurricane. When the proctor called time and Marcus had to put his pencil down, he knew with sickening certainty that he had bombed the exam in ways that would be impossible to hide or explain away. His performance so poor that even generous partial credit couldn't salvage a passing score, let alone the perfect 5 that his MIT application required. The weight of that failure settled on his shoulders like a lead blanket as he walked home in a daze, dreading the conversation he would have to have with his parents about how their brilliant son had just destroyed his academic future in 3 hours of mathematical catastrophe. The score of 2 that arrived in the mail 6 weeks later confirmed Marcus's worst fears, a number so low that it disqualified him from receiving any college credit and effectively eliminated his chances of admission to MIT or any other top-tier engineering program. The thin envelope containing that devastating news represented the collapse of everything his family had worked toward for 18 years, their immigrant dream apparently ending not with triumph, but with the kind of failure that would haunt them for generations. His parents' reaction was a mixture of disbelief, disappointment, and desperate attempts to find explanations that didn't involve their son simply not being smart enough to succeed at the highest levels of academic achievement, suggesting that maybe he had been sick during the exam or that there had been some kind of scoring error or that he could retake the test, any possibility that might salvage their vision of his future as a successful engineer or scientist working for prestigious companies and earning the kind of income that would justify every sacrifice they had made. Marcus spent the summer after graduation in a deep depression, watching his classmates celebrate their acceptances to elite universities, while he faced the reality that his academic career was effectively over. His dreams of studying computer science and artificial intelligence at MIT replaced by the prospect of attending community college or a lower-tier state school where his failure would follow him like a shadow, constantly reminding him and everyone around him that he wasn't as smart or capable as he had always believed himself to be. But during those dark months of self-doubt and recrimination, something unexpected began to happen. Marcus started to question not just his own abilities, but the entire system that had defined success so narrowly that a single test score could determine the worth of years of hard work and dedication. Wondering why academic achievement was considered the only valid measure of intelligence and potential when the world was full of successful people who had never excelled in traditional classroom settings. He began spending time online, not studying for retakes or researching backup schools, but exploring the emerging world of internet entrepreneurship and digital business, discovering stories of people who had built successful companies without impressive degrees or perfect test scores, entrepreneurs who had identified problems in the world and created solutions that generated both profit and positive impact, achievements that seemed far more meaningful than memorizing formulas or writing essays about literature. The idea for his first business came from his own experience of academic failure. Recognizing that millions of students around the world were struggling with the same feelings of inadequacy and hopelessness that had consumed him after bombing the calculus exam. Realizing that there was a massive underserved market of young people who needed alternative paths to success that didn't depend on traditional academic achievement, but on creativity, problem-solving skills, and the ability to identify and meet customer needs in innovative ways. Marcus started with a simple website called Beyond the Grade, initially just a blog where he shared his own story of academic failure and recovery, but which quickly evolved into a platform that connected students who had struggled in traditional educational settings with mentors and resources that helped them discover and develop their non-academic talents and interests, creating a community of young people who are redefining success on their own terms rather than accepting society's narrow definitions of achievement and worth. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of students from around the world reaching out to share their own stories of academic disappointment and their desire to find meaningful alternatives to the college-to-career pipeline that had failed to serve their needs or recognize their unique talents and perspectives. creating a movement that challenged fundamental assumptions about education, intelligence, and the relationship between academic performance and real-world success. Within 6 months, Marcus had built a community of over 50,000 members, young people who were starting their own businesses, pursuing creative careers, developing innovative solutions to social problems, and proving that success could be achieved through paths that had nothing to do with test scores or grade point averages, their achievements serving as evidence that traditional educational metrics were poor predictors of actual capability and potential for making meaningful contributions to the world. The website's success led to speaking engagements at high schools and community centers, where Marcus shared his story and encouraged students to think beyond conventional measures of success. But more importantly, it generated enough advertising revenue and membership fees to provide him with the financial foundation for his next venture, a more ambitious project that would revolutionize how young people thought about
career development and personal achievement in the digital age. Recognizing that most career guidance and educational resources were still focused on traditional academic and professional paths, Marcus launched Alternative Success Academy, an online platform that offered courses, mentorship programs, and practical resources for young people who wanted to build businesses, develop creative skills, or pursue unconventional careers that didn't require college degrees, but did require entrepreneurial thinking, practical skills, and the confidence to create their own opportunities rather than waiting for them to be provided by established institutions. The Academy's curriculum covered everything from basic business principles and digital marketing to creative problem-solving and personal branding. But unlike traditional educational programs, it emphasized real-world application over theoretical knowledge, encouraging students to start actual projects and businesses rather than simply completing assignments and passing tests, creating a learning environment that valued results and impact over grades and credentials. Marcus recruited instructors who are successful entrepreneurs, artists, and innovators rather than traditional academics, people who had built their own unconventional paths to success and could teach from experience rather than theory, creating a faculty that understood the challenges and opportunities facing young people who wanted to succeed outside the traditional system because they had faced and overcome those same challenges themselves. The Academy's approach resonated with students around the world who were hungry for alternatives to traditional education, enrollment growing from a few hundred in the first year to over 10,000 by the end of the second year, with alumni going on to start successful businesses, launch creative projects, and build careers that combined personal fulfillment with financial success, proving that Marcus's vision of alternative pathways to achievement was not just inspiring, but practical and effective. As the Academy grew, so did its impact on the broader conversation about education and success, with Marcus being invited to speak at major conferences, appearing on television programs, and being featured in magazines as an example of how failure can become the foundation for extraordinary achievement. His story inspiring millions of people to reconsider their own definitions of success and their assumptions about what it takes to build a meaningful and prosperous life. The financial success followed naturally from the impact, with the Academy generating millions of dollars in annual revenue through course fees, corporate partnerships, and licensing deals with organizations that wanted to implement Marcus's educational philosophy in their own programs. But more importantly, it created a sustainable business model that could continue to serve students and generate positive social impact while providing Marcus with the financial security that his parents had always wanted him to achieve through traditional academic success. 5 years after failing the calculus exam that was supposed to ruin his life, Marcus found himself running a company valued at over $50 million, employing dozens of people and serving hundreds of thousands of students around the world. His success story being cited by educators, entrepreneurs, and motivational speakers as evidence that failure is often not the end of the road, but the beginning of a different and potentially more rewarding journey than the one that was originally planned. His parents, who had initially struggled to understand how their son's academic failure could lead to business success, gradually came to appreciate that Marcus had achieved something even more valuable than the prestigious engineering career they had envisioned for him, building not just personal wealth, but a platform that helped other young people avoid the despair and self-doubt that had nearly destroyed his son's confidence and ambition after his test score arrived in the mail. The company continued to expand internationally, opening offices in Europe and Asia, developing partnerships with major corporations that wanted to recruit talented young people who had been overlooked by traditional educational systems, and creating scholarship programs that provided free access to academy courses for students from low-income families who couldn't afford the tuition but possessed the creativity and determination needed to succeed as entrepreneurs and innovators. Marcus's story became required reading in business schools as an example of how disruptive innovation often comes from people who have been excluded from or have failed within established systems, their outsider status giving them the perspective needed to identify problems and opportunities that insiders take for granted, and their experience with failure providing them with the resilience and adaptability needed to persist through the inevitable challenges of building something new and valuable. Today, 10 years after that devastating calculus exam, Marcus Chen runs a global education empire worth over $200 million, has been featured on the cover of major business magazines, speaks regularly at conferences around the world, and has helped over 500,000 young people discover and develop their unique talents and abilities, proving that sometimes the biggest failures in our lives are actually disguised opportunities to discover our true calling and create the kind of success that goes far beyond anything we originally thought was possible. The most remarkable aspect of Marcus's story isn't just that he turned academic failure into business success, but that he used his experience of disappointment and rejection to build something that prevents other young people from experiencing the same despair and self-doubt that nearly destroyed his own confidence and ambition, transforming his personal pain into a platform for helping others discover that there are many different ways to succeed in life, and that the path that seems like failure might actually be leading towards a destination that's far more rewarding than anything you originally planned to achieve, proving that sometimes the most important lesson in life is learning that the test scores, grades, and external validations that seem so crucial in the moment are actually just one small part of a much larger story about what it means to create value, make a difference, and build a life that matters not because it meets other people's expectations, but because it reflects your own unique talents, passions, and commitment to making the world a better place for everyone who comes after you.